You know that feeling when you type a prompt into your sleek, seemingly magical AI assistant and bam, within seconds, you get this perfectly crafted response? It feels like pure, unadulterated automation, doesn't it? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're totally pulling back the curtain on how these tools actually work. We're going to look at the massive hidden supply chain that makes all that AI magic possible.
So prepare to have the illusion shattered a bit. Get this, according to the World Bank, there are estimated to be between 150 and 430 million data laborers globally. Let that sink in. That is a staggering number of human beings. And we're not talking about software engineers sitting comfortably in Silicon Valley here. This is a vast, distributed workforce powering the very core of artificial intelligence. Basically, AI is not purely automated. It's fundamentally human.
Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Here's our roadmap. 1. The illusion of automation. 2. Economics of ghost work. 3. The trauma of moderation. 4. The global language gap. And finally, 5. The fight for fair AI.
Starting off with Section 1, the illusion of automation.
We all kind of picture AI as this self-actualizing, totally autonomous digital brain, right? But the reality is a massive contrast. It actually requires an unbelievable amount of human intervention. Those 150 to 430 million cognitive laborers we just talked about, they are constantly providing the cultural nuance and the ethical filtering that large language models completely lack on their own.
And that brings us to a really foundational concept in the industry, human in the loop, or HITL. Now, this isn't just some temporary patch until the tech gets better. It's a core architectural requirement. Why? Because algorithms, well, they don't inherently know what good, safe, or helpful behavior actually looks like in the real world. They literally need humans to actively make decisions, edit responses, and ground the model in human reality.
The most prominent framework for doing this is called reinforcement learning from human feedback. It's often just called RLHF. It's basically a three-step process. You've got supervised fine-tuning, reward model training, where humans literally rank AI responses, and optimization. But here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. While RLHF takes less than 2% of the computing power used to pre-train a massive model, it relies heavily on thousands of actual humans making rapid, highly subjective judgment calls under extreme pressure just to ensure the model is safe and useful for us.
Moving right along to Section 2, Economics of Ghost Work.
So who exactly are these workers? In the industry, they're often called ghost workers. It's this invisible workforce performing incredibly precarious microtasks. Think labeling images or moderating text. What's absolutely vital to understand here is that they frequently operate on a piece rate system, meaning they are paid just fractions of a cent per task. And even worse, they often spend hours just waiting for those tasks to appear on their screen. That waiting time, completely unpaid. It really makes you wonder how that's even sustainable.
When you look at how this global labor breaks down by region, the structural inequality is glaringly obvious. In the US, data workers might make around $15 an hour, but they still face massive unpaid waiting times. In Kenya, wages drop significantly to a median of about $1.50 to $2 an hour amid extreme precarity. And then you look at Venezuela, where workers are paid mere pennies per task, driven entirely by a severe economic crisis.
Let's zoom in on Venezuela for a second. $1.48. That is the monthly minimum wage in Venezuela right now. Big tech middleman platforms intentionally target workers in hyperinflation economies exactly like this. They basically secure human labor at rock-bottom prices, exploiting a crisis-driven dependency to build these billion-dollar AI models on the cheap.
This relentless drive for efficiency creates an environment known as digital Taylorism. This is where human labor is fragmented into the smallest possible units and monitored with extreme, almost sci-fi precision. For instance, Meta's Model Capability Initiative reportedly tracks contractors' keystrokes, their mouse movements, and screen activity to train AI to replicate human-computer interaction. It's a totally surreal environment where the algorithms the workers are helping to build are actually the ones managing and monitoring them.
All right, Section 3, the trauma of moderation.
For an AI to filter out the internet's most horrific content, a human has to view it first. Because of this, content moderators frequently suffer from profound secondary trauma. The sources document severe psychological symptoms among workers, especially in moderation hubs located in places like Kenya and Ghana. We're talking PTSD with recurrent nightmares, moral injury from feeling complicit in harmful systems, and profound emotional numbness. There's even a documented phenomenon called doppelganger phobia, which is this severe emotional distress driven by the fear of AI-generated versions of oneself. Think about how uniquely terrifying that is.
And the everyday realities inside these moderation hubs, run by outsourcing companies like Sama and Majorel, are truly harrowing. Workers report handling incredibly violent content 40 hours a week, which in some cases leads to addiction, just as a coping mechanism. Plus, workers allege that the wellness counselors provided to them were entirely performative and were actually used to monitor them rather than support them. You combine that with incredibly strict non-disclosure agreements forbidding them from talking about what they do, and these workers end up deeply, profoundly isolated from their own families and communities.
Moving on to Section 4, the global language gap.
So AI development doesn't just marginalize the Global South economically and psychologically, it does it linguistically too. For speakers of thousands of what are called low-resource languages, like Amharic in Ethiopia or Quechua in South America, using AI comes with a literal double tax. Imagine if the apps you use every day were suddenly 5 times more expensive and significantly slower just because of your native language. That is the reality here. And because there's simply less data available for these languages, the systems are highly vulnerable to safety risks. They simply can't be systematically tested for things like misinformation or fraud.
There's this fascinating, but honestly deeply troubling technical glitch known as the Bible bias. See, when Silicon Valley companies just broadly scrape the web for African languages, the only high-quality audio and text pairs they usually find are religious recordings. This extractive method builds fundamentally broken products. You end up with AI systems that easily recognize the voices of older men reading scripture, but completely fail to understand the voices, the slang, or the everyday realities of young women or teenagers.
But hey, it absolutely doesn't have to be this way. Ethical alternatives are definitely emerging. Companies in Africa and India like Lisan AI and Karia are proving that you don't have to exploit communities to build world-class tech. They hire intentionally, they pay fairly, and they treat data contributors as actual creators and partners, not just raw resources to be blindly extracted.
Which brings us to our final part. Section 5, the fight for fair AI. The workers in the loop are no longer staying silent. We are seeing landmark legal battles designed to finally end this corporate phantom status, where big tech just hides behind layers of subcontractors. A massive breakthrough happened recently in Kenya, where a court of appeal ruled that Meta can indeed be sued in Kenyan courts over the dismissal and treatment of content moderators. In the US, class action suits like Schuster versus Scale AI are challenging exposure to traumatic content. And on the regulatory side, the new EU AI Act will explicitly classify AI tools used for worker management as high risk.
But here's the catch. Despite this pushback, the industry itself is actually closing its doors. According to the 2025 Foundation Model Transparency Index, the average transparency score for major AI companies has plummeted to just 40 out of 100. So, despite all the PR rhetoric you hear about responsible AI, big tech is becoming rapidly and systematically more opaque about their actual training data and their labor practices.
Still, the global demand for algorithmic dignity and fair compensation is louder than ever. As Amnesty International stated regarding those Kenyan court rulings, this pushback paves the way for justice and serves notice to big tech platforms that the era of impunity is over. The humans in the loop are demanding to be seen. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question. The magic of your AI assistant is fueled by the very real labor, the sweat, and sometimes the trauma of millions of invisible workers all around the globe. As this technology scales to touch every part of our lives, we have to ask ourselves, will the future of AI just entrench global inequalities and create a new digital underclass, or will it empower the humans who actually build it? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.